Originally from Baton Rouge, Dr. Horton earned her bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Louisiana State University, and later became the first African American to receive a PhD in material science from the University of Alabama with a concentration in physics. Currently, she serves as an airworthiness deputy for the Electrified Powertrain Flight Demonstrator Project at NASA's Armstrong Flight Research Center. Throughout her career, Dr. Horton has received numerous awards, including the Black Engineer of the Year Trailblazer Award and the NASA Space Flight Team Award. Dr. Horton has been recognized widely, named as Louisianian of the Year in 2019, inducted into the LSU Alumni Hall of Distinction, and featured in Google's Black Women Techmakers documentary series, as well as other prominent films highlighting her contributions to STEM and advocacy. She is also the author of Dr. H Explores the Universe, a popular children's series that introduces young readers to the wonders of science. We are just truly honored to have her here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Dr. K. Renee Horton.
I'm going to hire her. I'm going to take her away from you guys and hire her. Man, she makes me sound great, too. Shit. All right, it is actually my honor to be here. You could have chosen to be anywhere tonight, and you chose to be here in this room to listen to my voice. And so I am truly honored. She said on the way here, I said, how many people do you think? We were talking about something else. So I was asking one question and she was answering. She said, it'll only be about 20 people tonight. And I said, oh, okay, that's gonna be real intimate. And so thank you for exceeding her every expectation and for showing up. And so, flying on a rocket and how I got here. So you know, you ever see that TikTok of those videos and it was like, so that's me there, and how did I get here? So how did I get here in this broken, all right, hold on. In this funny outfit and my broken thing. I'm gonna fix it, hold on 1 second. I'm pretty good at fixing. All right, so, how did I get here? But before I can get there to tell you how I got here, right here in this spot, I gotta tell you this. NASA loves my brain, but they do not like all of my opinions. So I have to tell you that these are my words alone. I put this slide deck together. Nobody helped me from NASA but me. I'm from NASA, and I think that's a crazy statement when I say nobody from NASA, because I'm from NASA, right? But anyway, these are my opinions and my opinions alone. Please don't take them personal, and don't go write my boss and tell him I said this, because it's not true. So this is how I got here. Right? At 9, my dad bought me a telescope, and it was amazing. It was the first time I could see like the moon and the features for myself. Not something I saw in a book, not just standing there gazing up at it, but you know, I could see it and I was super excited. Now I had gone on the roof of my house, and so I'm gonna date myself, because it had one of those antennas on the side of the house, right? And we scaled the side of the house and we got on there. Well, my older brother went with me, who was not interested in science at all. The catch is, he was the protector, and he knew, even though I snuck out the window alone, right? But if I had gone up there and if something had happened, he was going to be in trouble the next day. So he conceded, and he also climbed out the window. He let me go first, and I set it up, and it was a blurry image. I'm not gonna lie, it was not all that clear, but it was enough to spark inside of me the desire and the passion and the want to be a scientist. Moving forward, my grandmother was sewing little coats for Barbie. So you know, all they're doing with Barbie now, they're late. Because my grandmother was making every doll I had, even the little monkey doll I had little lab coats. We were just pumping them out, you know. I was committed to being a scientist. So when I talked to the students earlier, that was not one of the questions they asked me. It was like, how long have you wanted to be, or when did you know? The catch is, I felt like it was in my DNA, right? And I used to say all the time that when my daddy's sperm met my mama's egg, right then, it was like, you're gonna be a scientist. And I knew it at that moment. Growing up, we had all of this exploration, and I was just probably a nosy or over busy kid or something. They just couldn't keep me together all the time. But at my grandmother's house, my mom's mom, she planted flowers. And so I got to watch The flowers come and go, and I got to understand how it actually worked, right? I got to see the bees and the butterflies and the caterpillars at her house, and I was all into that. Nobody else was, because I was catching those bugs. You remember those trays of paint we used to get? And you had the container. Well, I took those containers and burned little holes in the top and put the caterpillars in there. Some did not make it, I'm just gonna let you know. Some did not make it. But others crystallized, and once they crystallized, we would just open them up. And then I would get butterflies. And that was all at my grandmother's house in the yard over there. And they was like, you don't want the paint? No, not really. I would get them to buy the paint and I'd give it to the others. My grandma had 8 grandkids at the house all at one time at my mom's mom. So we were sharing things, and I didn't want the things. I wanted the boxes. I wanted the broken things. I wanted those things, right? That was at my grandmother's. At my own backyard, we had a big old tree, and it had bees in it. And every year we called LSU, and they would come and get the bees out. They would harvest the bees and the honey, and it would come back next year. Well, there was one year I decided I was gonna do it myself, right? And so I saw the guys, they came out in white suits, so we took a white sheet. You see where this is going, right? I put it on my head, I cut the eyes out, we taped it on the hands. I am good to go. Did not work that way. We went up and disturbed that bee nest, and I got my butt tore up, found out I'm allergic to bees. In my backyard, we also grew watermelons, and so me and my brother had convinced ourselves we were gonna be farmers. We lived in the city, but we were gonna be farmers. And we planted and we grew watermelons one year, and we had blackberry grow out there. They grew wild. I do take credit for them, but they grew wild. We didn't plant those, right? But we had cucumbers. We planted those and they grew. And so it was learning all of these things, experimental. Nobody was telling us what to do. Well, nobody, exactly. We own 2 sets of encyclopedias. We own the World Book, the World Book, and then Encyclopedia Britannica. You could almost look up anything. Now, I know I just really dated myself, right? But trust me, guys, these things were in the book. I'm telling you they were. And then at my dad's mom's house, there was the train tracks. And this is where I learned about physics. Also maybe about near death. But the physics was what was important. We would put the nickels and quarters on the train tracks, and you'd watch displacement. Now, I thought that was a cool thing because I understood what had just happened and how all the cells in that little piece of metal just got squished around. And I went and explained that to them, and they said, who all put money on the train tracks? And I realized right then that we were probably all in trouble. And I said, it was only me. So I was the only one got a spanking, and I was the only one punished. Guess how many more quarters and nickels and pennies got squashed? A whole lot more, right? Because we learned you could put them on there if you didn't hear the train in the whistle. If you didn't hear the whistle anytime soon, it was okay to go out. So what they taught me right then was listen for the whistle. And then boom, my parents divorced when I was 13, and my whole life changed. I went from going on vacation to Disney World and 2-parent income to my mom being single and her not being able to afford to keep our water or our lights on all the time. And so sometimes we'd get a call and she'd say, go draw the water in the bathtub and fill it up because they're gonna cut the water off and I can't pay the bill until Friday. Usually this is on Wednesday, and I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and it wasn't a thing. Like, it was like, oh, okay, we'll just do that. So one time we didn't do that, and the guy, we running down the street like, come back, sir. You gotta turn it on, because we didn't do what she said do, and we're gonna be in a lot of trouble. So he came back, turned it on, we drew the water, walked out, and I'm like, okay, good. Well, from then on, he'd knock on the door. Did you do what your mama say do? And he'd be like, oh man, today's that day. And he was like, don't worry, today's Thursday. It'll be back on Friday. You're good. You don't have to fill up all the time, you know. So I was like, oh man. My life changed though at that moment. And Dr. Ward just read everything that came after that. So I'm gonna stop right now. If there's somebody in this room who's struggling in that moment, because we're in that kind of time right now, I wanna let you know it's really not the end of the world. And just like I can stand here and laugh about it, it's we give my mom a little bathtub at Christmas. And we put a little water in it and like, here you go. And now it's a running joke sometimes. But the thing is, it didn't kill me. So I graduated college at 16. I was a nerd, yep. But also my late birthday, so I'm not gonna take all the credit for being super, super smart, which I am. But my birthday's not until October. So I skipped a year, and then my birthday was, October. I graduated in May. do the math, it's not that bad. But I looked like a kid. I looked like 13 or so when I joined college, and it wasn't a great experience because they didn't know what to kind of do with me, right? And it was okay, because written in the universe was I wasn't going to be there long anyway, because the next year I was diagnosed with a hearing loss, and I had no idea what to do, because I had gone through the Air Force ROTC. They were the ones who gave me the physical. They are also the ones who rejected me. I watched them watch the X next to reject. I was like, dang, they just got reject and accept on the paper. That's it. He marked it, and he sent me through a series of questions like, you know, did you do this? Did you do that? And I'm like, no. Had no idea I had a hearing loss. But it was significant enough that all the dreams that I had been dreaming, because remember, I wanted to be an astronaut, all of that went out the window right then. So at that time, I was about an hour and 45 minutes from home, and I was all upset and depressed, and I'm driving back home. But at the time, I was dating this gorgeous guy, y'all. This boy had muscles and stuff because he was a football player. He was just so cute. I'm talking about dark chocolate, like poured over an almond, like that, right? So I get to him, and I tell him, all of our dreams of me supporting you are going down the drain. I can't even go to the Air Force now. Well, he consoled me and left me with a gift. But he did the right thing because we're in the South. And my daddy said, y'all's going pregnant together. Y'all's going to get married too. Well, we got married. So I dropped out of college and became a wife and a mother. So there's somebody in this room right now that is probably could be a non-traditional student or knows someone who wants to be a non-traditional student. And what I'm telling you is that is possible. Someone else decided a path that we should take, and that's graduate from high school, go to college, get your degree, go find a job, and go do all of these great things, right? And what I'm telling you is my story didn't turn out like that, and you already know the ending of my story. I'm giving you the good stuff right now. 7 years later, we separated. He may have been gorgeous, but Lord knows we were not equally yoked or aligned together. He couldn't even dream big enough for the dreams that I was dreaming. I was dreaming of changing the world, and he was dreaming of getting a bass boom system put in our car. I gave birth to my daughter after that. So the two boys were with my husband, and I gave birth to my daughter. And if my mother was here, she'd be snickering right now because they gave me the baby, and she looked at me and she said, what are we gonna do? And my mother always says, you were amped up on some drugs. That baby was not talking. It was a representation, though, that she was a little me, a little mini me, a little girl. And I realized right then that I wanted the world to be different for her. I wanted her to be able to walk through doors and have opportunities that I didn't have. I wanted her to be able to dream and dream the dreams she wanted to dream. I promise we're going to get to some research. I went back to college like a fool with 3 kids. We moved into family dorms. Can you imagine that? Everybody had kids and everybody was poor. So we moved into family dorms, and my daughter hadn't turned 2 yet. But you know the ending of that, right? I ended up getting my BS in 2 years. We went straight through. Didn't have a job. So, my beautiful ginger here, grad school. I didn't have a job. I went to grad school. And in grad school is where I discovered my passion that I wanted to be able to do amazing things in science. I really wanted to be there, right? Got this degree from the University of Alabama, finished as the first African American, later on inducted into my undergrad's Hall of Distinction. So micro hardness and strain field characterization of self-reaction, friction stir welding, and pull plug of dissimilar alumina. Now, what I learned at NASA as a student, I was there 2.5 years as a student doing this research, is that if it does not have more than 5 words, it's not really important. So our titles are very long, and the longer your title is, the more important you are, right? And so this dissertation needs to be really long and tongue-tying at that, right? So that when I get up and talk about it, I stumble over it. That's how you know it is important work. Self-reacting friction stir welding is like a solid state process where two metals are joined together. They pass an anvil and a, oh Lord, what is it? That thing right there, there we go. The rotation. So they're going to rotate the spindle across it, and as it's going, that metal becomes kind of plasticized, right? And then as it passes, it cools down and then hardens together. There's a new structure in the center, and then the parent material on either side of it still retains its own characterization and its own material strength. And so you'll see some people say metal joining, but it really is a type of welding, and it's done by machine. What I was able to do, and I'm extremely excited about it, was determine like the failure mechanism and the failure propagation between when you would spin the plug and plug a hole. So self-reacting friction stir welding is used for circumferential type welding. And so you go into a hole, you would weld around it, weld over that hole, and then when you pull the pin out on the other side of it, it leaves a hole. And then you spin a plug really fast and plug it the same exact way. The catch is we were thinking that it would fail at either the 12 o'clock or the 6 o'clock. And so when we did the study, that's not what happened. It failed at like the 45-degree angle, so more like 10-ish, 11-ish over there. And it failed in that area because that was the area that the three metals joined together, right? And so that was the weakest point. And so that weakest point is where if it was going to fail, that is where it was going to fail. So what we ended up doing was they ended up switching out some of the alumina. I tested several different combinations of that. And currently it is what is being welded on Artemis. So how we were testing that was that my very first position at NASA as a full-time employee was welding this MSA, which is just a multi-service adapter. And this adapter was going to be used to adapt the Orion capsule to the test vehicle, and we were going to test it. And so I got the chance to actually be on that program and oversee let me stop. NASA thinks once you get a PhD that you're too smart to do real work and that you gotta oversee other people doing real work. I became a manager. Go figure that. So I'm managing this project and I'm managing the testing of the coupons. And so under our management, which I'm really excited about, we came in under budget and on schedule, and actually a little bit of margin for schedule to be able to get it out. Well, one of the things they allowed us to do was to go in and write our names on it. So I went under there and I wrote my mama name, my daddy name, my sister's name. I wrote them 3 kids who went through school with me. I wrote their name on it too. And I wrote this guy I was dating. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give some dating advice right now, okay? Do not waste your ink writing that on there, because let me tell you what happened. This thing went up into space, and when it came down, what happened? It burned right on up, and so did the relationship. So I worked on Artemis for 12 years. And so Artemis, or the Space Launch System, as you may see it in there, originally we were going to Mars, but when our current new elected president was old president, he sent us to the moon. So now we are headed to the moon, and I'm pretty sure he's happy because we will make the moon while he's in office, so he will be really happy there. Core stage, which is the center part here, from here to all the way down to the engines, is what we call core stage. And all of core stage was welded in New Orleans. It was welded and fabricated in New Orleans, and then they spray foam was also done in New Orleans as well. And so I tell people all the time that New Orleans does not just have daiquiris and hand grenades and beignets and good food, but you can't get to space without going through New Orleans. We've been in this program through Apollo. And so we're doing great things there. For me, I oversaw core stage and anything metallic on it. I was able to bring the largest weld tool in the world online to be able to weld all the circumferential welds that are on this particular rocket. The engines, into the engine section is probably the newest thing on there. The rest of it is kind of similar to the booster that we had before during Apollo and Saturn. And so the engines, there are 4 RS-25 engines. They are the old shuttle engines. And so we just use them again to actually power the vehicle. And I got to oversee the engines going into the engine section. And so the award that I am the most proud of for my career is the Space Flight Team Award, and it was for overseeing the engines into the engine section. But I'll tell you how the world works. We go to Green Run, and Green Run is where we're going to test the core stage. The catch is, in the position that I'm in, we knew everything that was wrong with the vehicle. Every non-conformance came through our department, and you know this, right? So they said, do you want to be on console in the room or at home on backup? I wanted to be at home on backup. I've got a potty mouth, and I did not want any explicits to end up accidentally on television. So I'm at home, and I'm on console at home, and I invited my girlfriends over too. I'm like, y'all got to come see this. So 2 of them work for NASA. They came over. Another one did not. And we're all sitting in the room together, and this thing goes to fire up, and the television is going, and you could hear the rumbling on the bass sound system in the house. And I'm like, what happened? 8 seconds. They go, was it supposed to do that? And I go, no. And immediately we went into mode of having to figure out what was wrong and all of that. By this time, I knew that I wanted to shift. And so I had reached my milestone point and I was ready to shift. And when they fired it the second time, I got to go as VIP, and I got to sit in the space and feel the vibrations at that time. And I never thought that I could cry about anything as I cried about the success that we had gone from 8 seconds to going and repairing it, fixing it, and then it running 810 seconds, right? And so I was asked earlier, like, what am I most proud of in my career? And I think it's got to be the Space Flight Team Award, because it's one of those things where great things happen when you work together. And that team award, it was across the board. So it was the folks who, Aerojet Rocketdyne, who made the engines, Boeing, and then NASA in doing that. And we worked a lot of long hours, but it all paid off because Artemis I actually launched and launched successfully.
50 years after we last left footprints on the moon, NASA's Artemis I is our first bold step towards getting us back there and pushing us farther than we've ever been before. You are looking at the world's most powerful rocket and Orion spacecraft live on Launch Pad 39B. The energy here is palpable as we attempt to make history today.
We're going to learn so much about the solar system from the moon and even about the Earth.
Range weather. Weather is go for launch.
The mission management team has been told you have a go to proceed with terminal count.
On behalf of all the men and women across our great nation who have worked to bring this hardware together to make this day possible, at this time I give you a go to resume count and launch Artemis I.
First female flight
3,
conductor.
2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis I. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
SLS now traveling 607 miles per hour.
The harder the climb, the better the view. We showed the Space Coast tonight. What a beautiful view it is. The first step in returning our country to the moon and on to Mars.
We are understanding now from the James Webb Space Telescope just how big and vast this universe is. There's a lot out there to explore. And this is the next beginning.
Orion is now flying free, attached to the European Service Module and on its journey to the moon.
Every single time I watch this, I get goosebumps. It's the thought that I could be in a place and in a position with the ability to be able to help this actually happen, right? And for me, maybe for all humans, one of the hardest things to do sometimes is to let go once you've had success. Like you want to stay around and see what the next thing is going to be. You want to stay there, right? And for me, what I realized was when people started saying, oh, you're this and that in tech, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing little things. I was looking at little things, right? Little bitty things. And one day it hit me that they will never change the way that they weld our tanks. Very few people get to do research and actually work in the field that their research is in. So I had the honor to do the research, to bring it to a point that it could be used, to take it from that, using it, and it will be used as long as we are welding Artemis. So for me, it gave me permission, I gave myself permission to let Artemis go and to move forward. Where did I go? So I went to the Low Boom Flight Demonstrator Project. But I'm going to tell you just how not so bright I am in this moment, transparent moment. I'm on the phone with the project manager, and at the time they had moved me out to California, and I lived in a kind of seedy area, but there was a gun range around the corner. And so every now and then I kept hearing kaboom, and I kept thinking, what are they shooting over there in that gun range, right? Because at this time I'm an hour away from where the planes fly from, okay? And I was on the phone with her one day, and I said, Kathy, do you know where this gun range is? She was like, I do. I said, what do you think they're shooting over there? Like, they gotta be shooting cannons or something. Did you just hear that big boom sound? And she giggled, and she said, honey buns, the program you were working on is the Low Boom Flight Demonstrator Project, and we were trying to reduce the boom, and that is your boom you just heard. And right then it was like, yo, that's crazy. Like, how far am I from where this supersonic corridor is? And I knew how far I was, but yet and still I could still hear that. So when I started, it was a very conceptual type plane, which is the picture up top. That was the conceptual image of it. When I walked away from this project, it was actually a plane. And we just had the first successful engine run on it like 2 days ago. Now these are my babies, right? So somebody thought I was real smart and then gave me a real souped up title. Remember I told you it's got to have a lot of words. So I am the Electrified Powertrain Flight Demonstrator Project Airworthiness Deputy. Okay, I just made it there, 6, I just made it, right? But that's what I am now. And what I do is we work with two contractors. GE is one of them and magniX is another. magniX is a very small company. Everybody's heard of GE. GE is taking a two-engine plane and converting one of the engines to hybrid, and then the other one is turbo-mechanical. And then magniX is taking a 4, and they're going to convert 2 of the engines to electric as well. And then we're using a current storage system to be able to fly these. This is an exciting project for me because overall it is to help with bridging the gap that we have in regulation for dealing with electric, because there's not a lot of regulation for FAA right now. So we're working on helping to bridge that gap for regulation, and on top of that, it'll overall help with the reduction of the carbon footprint once we move on to the next phase. I'm extremely excited about this project because if you remember, I joined the what? Air Force ROTC. So I've had these full circle moments in my life, right? The first one for me was to have my name fly in space. And then now this next full circle moment for me was to be working on these planes and making an impact with that. And at no time, you've heard my story, was it ever straight or linear. But I still was able to achieve the things that I was dreaming about simply because I decided I didn't want someone else dictating for me what my limitations could be. This project will have the first flight for GE in December of 2025 and then magniX in 2026. So how did I get here in North Adams, right? That's the good part, right? As a physicist, you can go anywhere you want to go. Dang it, it's not going to do it. I'm moving in there. Don't worry about it. So I go out to Ohio, and they tell me get on this thing and don't look down. And I look down, and I'm stuck. I was just far enough to where they couldn't pull me forward or pull me backwards. I'm stuck. So I have to pedal out, and then I'm like, no, that's not how I'm gonna go out though. I'm gonna overcome. So the next day, with 200 kids there, I get back on it. I didn't need the audience, because they're down there like, go, go! And I'm like, oh, I can't even look at them, right? But I pedal backwards and I pedal forward. And it was an amazing experience, because it's really one of those moments where it's like, physics really does work, right? The bike isn't strapped on, it's just on the wire. That's it. But because of physics, it works. I have served as the past president for the National Society of Black Physicists, which is about 300 or so students and professionals. I was the second woman to hold the office. 33 years before was Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson. She is notable and famous, and the idea that my name is listed with her name gives me goosebumps, right? I have served on the International Union of Pure and Applied Physics, the Women's Working Group, and I currently sit on developmental physics. That only allows me to go to Italy every year for the next 3 years to have a meeting. But I've been to Brazil, South Korea, South Africa, Canada, UK, Mexico, all in the name of physics, and Italy, all in the name of physics. So when we're thinking, why am I choosing my field? What am I gonna do with it? You can do whatever you want with it. You gotta just step out of the box that other people have created for themselves and decided that that's going to be the template for how this is going to be ran. I was inducted this year as an honorary fellow for Sigma Pi Sigma, which gives me goosebumps because it's the highest honor that you can receive. And my name is listed, I'm number 40 on the piece of paper. I took a picture of it, right? But my name is listed with people like Jocelyn Bell Burnell, you know, and John Mathis, and I could keep going down that list too, but then it's shameless name dropping. But they did that this year. And then AIP, I'm part of their series, and like what the face of scientists look like, that kind of thing. When I came out of school, my overarching goal was to change the face of STEM, is what I wanted. I would Google scientists and I would get Einstein or some other white guy that would be there. And you know, some of these white guys are good looking and all, but I want little girls to realize that they can do it too. And to do that, Google, we've got to disrupt that algorithm, right? To show other faces. Well, recently I Googled, I was looking to put some people's faces on a slide about scientists or with disabilities, and lo and behold, who's number 4 on the list? I am. And right then I realized like that overarching goal, what I wanted in life, was happening, right? I was changing what the face of science and technology looks like. I've had a Google, I was a Google Black tech maker, Black woman tech maker, and they made a documentary, and then AIP and AIPP came in and also made documentaries as well. This was the longest process ever. It's 8 minutes long. You're not gonna watch 8 minutes. It's 8 minutes long, the whole documentary, but it won a Webby Award. It took 9 days to shoot in the middle of a hurricane, like the hurricane came, like yours. The hurricane came, we had to stop shooting, and then they had to come back. But it won in the diversity and equity and inclusion, a Webby Award. I didn't even know what a Webby was, but they were super excited. We won it, and it's a really big deal in the film industry. And that's my grandson. So now, not only do I have these opportunities for him to see that you're gonna be with any and everybody, he gets to be a part of that too, and they use his picture as part of the campaign as well.
I've had a PhD now for 10 years. Nobody hands anybody a PhD, which says that I am intellectually capable. And I still question myself.
Now, you don't get to approve the clips for social media, right? I told you, they shot 8 days worth of footage, and this is what they chose to release as my social media little prep, whatever. I was pissed. And I said, why would you do that? Like, this is my one vulnerable moment that I had, and you decided to release that. And they said, it's the moment that you were at your purest vulnerability. Because right then in that moment, I was staying in an imposter syndrome. After 10 years, I was questioning why somebody would want to make a documentary about me. I was questioning if I should really be the person. Like, they interviewed 80 people and selected 3 of us. I was like, I'm not even sure I should have been one of the people chosen. I show this clip to the students and to the others sitting in the room simply because I need you to understand that not all of us have it together. You heard what she said about me. And I still, at 10 years in, was struggling with whether or not I belonged in the places people were now giving me a seat at the table. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be there. So I built my tribe, and as I call them and text them, I'm texting, they're saying, you were supposed to be there, go knock it out the park. And then I show up and I do those things. So when the guys chose this, and like I said, I was pissed at them, and we ran it, and it was crazy, because just this little excerpt got so much positive response behind it. I stand in my hearing loss now. I'm a hearing loss advocate. I know the dreams that I lost with not being able to stand up for myself, and I wasn't even sure, like, you know, what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm currently with Starkey Hearing, and I'm part of their campaign to talk about it. That's legit pictures of me on the kayak. So, and there was a little alligator in the back there. You can't see him, but he was there. December, a few years ago, I got to be an Astro Access ambassador, and we flew. And so this is that life moment of coming full circle again. And so wanting to be in space, and even though I may never travel to space unless I have $1 million to blow, this gave me my opportunity to feel what it would be like to be in space. And so they gave us the feeling of lunar gravity, they gave us the feeling of Martian gravity, and then they gave us 0G. And you can see the pure glee on our faces. This picture here was actually chosen because she is blind, she is completely deaf, and then mine is hard of hearing, and we all 3 work for NASA. And so all that shows that even NASA is allowing us to be in our full capacity to work for them, and they're working with us. And so this is in front of NASA there. And the others are my red hearing aids that I no longer have anymore because they don't make them red. I know, that's rude, isn't it? I know. They're like, we got these muted colors. That's not me. All right, I digress. So this is the AIP, We Are Scientists, and this, you can go there and look it up. They did 2 documentaries on each one of us, one kind of dealing with research based, and the other one's dealing with our personal lives and obstacles we've overcame to be there. And they chose the 3 of us to do it, and I feel extremely honored because this is that full circle moment again of changing the face of STEM forever recorded.
Being a nerd to me means that we have the intellectual capacity to switch up when we need to and start something new.
I'm on that one, and that one starts at 7 a.m. my time. Oh, Lord.
I am currently working as the airworthiness deputy for the Electrified Powertrain Flight Demonstrator Project. And what that project is, we are working on hybrid electric technology for airplanes. So the shift in my career has been really great for me. It is very interesting how people are surprised that NASA is in this, but the A in NASA is aeronautic.
I'm always shocked. People are like, are you still with NASA? You working on airplanes? I'm like, yeah, you know, we do those things, right? So they were like, tell us something that you're shocked about. And I am shocked that when I told people I no longer was working on Artemis and I was going to be working with EPFD, they were like, did you quit NASA? I was like, no, I didn't quit NASA. I shifted my career. But it was really important at that moment because I felt like I was stagnant on the space side, and I wasn't sure. I was starting to question whether or not I could make a change. And so making the change ended up being really good. Like I said, it actually turned out to be really good. And I actually love the work that we're actually doing, and the fact that I'm going to get able to be a part of a team that's going to impact society in a different way. I'm going to leave you with, when you're invited to the table, make sure you make room for someone else at the table. If they don't invite you to the table, build your own table. Invite the people you want there. And those that aren't invited will be envious of the fact that you're having this table and there are other people there. I live by this. And when I say that, there's been times I didn't get invited to something and I'm thinking, oh, that's crazy. And then I call somebody else up and I'm like, you know what we should do? Like, they didn't ask us for our opinion about that thing. We should put one together and we should do it. And then we do it. And then they're like, well, why would you do that? You're in competition. No, we're not. We just included people you didn't include. And it started to make people have to stop and think about what they were doing and how you're going to make a decision for somebody who's not even represented at the table. So as a woman, I want to be represented at the table. As a black woman, I want to be represented at the table. My needs as a person with a disability can be a little bit different. So I want you to understand that bringing different people to the table to help you get a project done does not diminish what you bring to the table at all. What it does is it amplifies the greater goal of what you want that table to achieve. That's all I got, though. So I got to ride in this Cessna, and the first thing somebody says, are you a pilot now? No, I'm not a pilot, but I'm working with a program that is willing to work with me. Because the funny thing is, the Air Force said I couldn't even come in, and everybody they discharged don't have no hearing now because they done damaged their hearing. They didn't even have to worry about that with me. They could have just let me in. And so they had asked me to come out to an air show in Helena, West Helena, Arkansas, which is in the middle of nowhere. I promise you it is. Like, it's just nowhere. And we were driving out there, and I'm like, it's nowhere. And they told me it was going to be 100 people. 100 people was supposed to show up. It was 382 people. So you're 20?
Yeah.
So she was really shocked. And they brought me birthday gifts because it was my birthday that like 2 days later, or 3 days later was my birthday. And I got a cupcake. And the guy took me up in the Cessna so I could eat a cupcake for my birthday in the air. Another full circle moment for me.
So let's thank the speaker one more time and then we'll So we're happy to open the floor now for any questions you have.
Do not hold your questions till I go out this room now. I'm not going to answer them then. I'm joking. I'm going to answer your question. Nobody has any questions? Wow, I did a bad job. Oh.
What does a typical day look like for you in terms of like the research that you're doing?
So one of the things I don't mention here is that I recently just got a project as chief engineer for a project which is a research project, so I'm really excited about that. Unfortunately, at the level I'm at, I'm still doing a lot of oversight. I don't get to touch anything. I don't get to play with nothing. I can't turn no ratchets, no nothing, right? So he's laughing at me, but it's the truth. Man, they think I'm management. I don't want to be management. I want to be tech. But a common day for me could easily be, Wednesdays is probably the most busiest, right? And so because we're on different time zones, there's about three different time zones in our project. And so some meetings start really early. And so on a Wednesday, my first meeting is at 7:30 a.m. And so I'm up doing a 7:30 a.m. And I do that, and it's about an hour long. And then the next one is at 9. And then there's another one at 11. And then there's one at 2. There's one at 3. Then there's one at 5. And because we deal with some folks that are in Washington, I have a 6:30 on Wednesday. So Wednesday is by far my longest day with meetings and doing that kind of thing. Being appointed as the chief engineer for this project that's dealing with shape-shifting materials now, so smart materials, I just became the chief engineer for that, and I'm gonna lead this particular group to what we call mission concept review. And so I don't know enough about the F-15. So now my day encompasses when I'm not in meetings, trying to understand like the attachment points, what does the stresses look like on the F-15? What does that pod look like? What we are gonna attach our experiment to. So I'm doing a lot of that, having to talk to people, and then to get us up to speed in that. When you're on a little project, you function as the chief engineer, the lead engineer, the systems engineer, and right now I'm also the operational engineer, right? And I told you I don't know anything about planes, right? Because I've only been over here 2 years. So I'm now also having to reach out to find out who are my subject matter experts in those areas, and then to make sure that they're giving me the information I need to be able to lead this team on December 4th to mission concept review, and then that goal is to get funding to make us a live project.
So in addition to all the technical skills that you in your education, you picked up all these soft skills in terms of the managing.
I have gone to soft skill class more than once. So what I learned early on was we don't have enough of us that could actually speak science well enough for the community, right? And so my daughter, who I made all these changes for, came to me one day and said, I don't ever want to be a scientist. Y'all don't know how to dress. Y'all is boring, and you always talking stuff I don't know. Well, it became my goal right then to make sure that she understood the things I did at work and why they were so important. Why was I missing your track meet, right? Well, the welding was happening. It has to happen at this time, but this is why it has to happen. And so she understood that, and she literally could speak my job at Artemis because I was constantly telling her, but the more I knew she understood, the more I was giving and putting in front of the community. So I got sent to public relations class 2 or 3 times, public speaking 2 or 3 times. And I enjoy what I do. I enjoy being here, being able to plant seeds and be able to, get other people pumped up about what we're doing. And the more that I like doing it, the more that they kept sending me out. The more practice you have, the better that you actually get at it. What I was stinking at was, my stinking thinking and how I got sent to people school over there was that I was saying things like, my God, that's gotta be the dumbest thing ever. And people would take that as, oh my gosh, you just called me dumb. And so that's the first time I got sent to people school. And then the second time I got sent to people school, I was walking out and I said, they had moved the meeting to a room that was on the factory. I am hearing impaired and cannot hear on the factory floor to be able to make an intellectual decision, right? So I sat there and they said, how do you vote? And I said, I don't vote. And then they said, well, why don't you vote? I said, because somebody had the brilliant idea. So there, right there is where I got to go to people school, right? I said, somebody had the brilliant idea to move this meeting on the floor, and I am deaf as a doorknob on this floor, and I can't hear. And so I don't even know what you just said for an hour and a half. And he said, well, why didn't you stop us? I said, because they told me not to. And I was like, so I am holding my vote. The catch was, whose vote was the important vote? So I got up and I walked out, and 20 minutes later, I was being called to sign up for People School. So People School is what they send us to make sure that we learn how to handle our subordinates up under us and, try to make everybody happy, right? I figure the food makes everybody happy, and so I would just buy food, and then bring food in and be like, there's donuts. In case I mess up today, there's donuts. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How do you recover after hitting a low point where you feel like your dream just is impossible to reach?
Well, I just told you that boyfriend of mine was real good looking, but don't take that route. All right. I got better advice for you now. I only allow myself 48 hours in that space. Literally 48 hours. From the time the clock starts, whatever happened, I'm sad, it just fell apart. Whatever, it's 48 hours. And I don't know, that's a very arbitrary number, but for me, the 48 hours represented, the earth turning 2 times, right? And the catch is, everything is still going. when you were in that moment, your lowest moment. You decided to just stand there, but the rest of the world is going. And now you're just that much further behind. And I'm not completely out of it in 48 hours, but in 48 hours, usually I go to bed with tequila, and when I wake up, right, I'm ready to tackle the world over again, right? Usually I go to bed, and when I wake up the next day, it's like I'm clear-headed. And it's like, okay, I'm still sad, I'm still upset, this is still frustrating, this is still happening, but do I have a plan? Like, is there something that I can do differently? And I'm also extremely critical of myself, right? Because the first thing I'm gonna do is, what did I do that could have been different, right? If I was in that situation, would I do anything different? And if my answer is no, then I'm good with that. But if my answer becomes, you know what? I really could have did X, and maybe I could have had a different outcome. And then I'm looking at, okay, how do I get past this now? And then how do I start moving on to the next thing? I celebrate the small wins, right? I go to the store, and I'm a Bluebell ice cream girl, right? And I'm having a bad day, and I'm gonna go buy the Bluebell, I'm gonna put it in there, I'm gonna give myself 2 scoops out of it, right? I'm gonna take the scoop and put 2 little scoops out of there. And now I'm good. Well, I'm not gonna touch that again until I've gotten past that point. I've got to earn whatever that reward is. I've also got an amazing support network. So if you do not have one, I'm gonna recommend you start building one. And I'm talking about pay attention to that support network though, right? So if you call them and say, oh my God, I'm having the worst hair day, and she goes, oh, I am too, she's not it, right? She's not the person, right? You wanna call her and say, I'm having a bad hair day, and she goes, oh my God, what did you do to it today? That's the person you want, right? They're gonna stand in that moment with you to support you in that. My telephone number. I really do text, don't call it though, don't be calling it. Don't call it. Text me. If you text me and you're in one of those moments, just text me and say, I'm in one of these moments. I can't move. Everybody gets in them. I went to my pastor and I was like, I'm stuck. The Lord is not moving me. He got me flying around like an airplane. I'm not landing, not taking off. I'm real dramatic, I know. And so I'm telling him all of this. And one of the things he said to me was, 1 or 2 things are gonna happen. You're gonna land or you're gonna take off. And I said, I just said that. And he was like, 1 or 2 things are gonna happen. You're gonna land or you're gonna take off. So when you're standing in that moment and it's a low moment, you gotta say to yourself, 1 or 2 things are gonna happen. I'm gonna stand here, or I'm gonna take a little bitty step to get myself out of it. And a little bitty step to get myself out of it. Got it? All right. Anything else?
I have a question.
Oh, you're not allowed to ask questions.
Oh. What's the most expensive thing you've ever broken? Research. Yeah. We can restrict it to there.
So,
you break things. It's okay. That's why.
Yes. So, my deposition chamber.
Oh, that hurts.
So, when you came into the University of Alabama, they give you the junk one, and you have to rebuild it. And I was having a bad day. And went to pump it down, and I don't know what happened. All I know is it never would pump down. And so then I went to try to, this is why I probably can't ratchet things anymore, but I went to try to unbolt something, and then that broke, and I was like, this is crazy. And then I got really angry, and I pushed, and it tipped off and fell. And it broke the ingoing wires into it, and it took a long time to get just to order those parts again, but also for me to be able to put them back together. It was a real learning lesson at that point about emotional control, a whole lot of other things, but about the fact that as frustrated as I was more frustrated for the semester I was down, a semester. So we do break things. The things that I have broken, not out of frustration and those other things I was forgiven for, because, I broke them, right? There were some other things that were important, like some of the deposition films or the sputtering, the sputtering discs that you use, they can't be broken. And so we've had 1 or 2 to fall and, things like that. But, those are forgiven. So if you're doing research, things are going to break. Now, if you are still using the mercury thermometers and you break one of those, please do not play with the little beads of mercury. I did. No, I'm joking. But we broke a few of them.
Do we have any other questions for the speaker? Yes.
What's your favorite thing you've ever done? Maybe in a research perspective.
No. So my favorite thing that I've done in research, I think still has to be working with the team that I got the Spaceflight Award for, because that is like the highest award you could get at NASA for a team. And I think that by far was my favorite. And even looking back on it, like it was such an amazing team to work with. My team now is an amazing team too, but it was an amazing team to work with. And it was right there in that moment because nothing that was happening in the world mattered. We all came to work, we had a unified goal, and we worked toward that. And we had a lot of good laughs together in doing that. Outside of that, I think one of my favorite things to do is they got these go-kart racing places. And so my team went to do that. Now we're all over 21 and we had been at dinner and everybody knows what happens at dinner, all right? So we get to the racing place and it says you can't be drinking. It's got a whole list of stuff and we had already broken 3 of those rules. And so the guys were like, we're gonna race anyway, right? That by far was my favorite thing to do. To be racing with pilots, you know, and everybody's like slamming and we're just spinning. And so that, I absolutely love being able to do those kind of things. I ride 4-wheelers, I ride horses. I used to have a motorcycle. And until my boss said, you know, NASA pays for your brain. Like he'd say that every time I rode it in, and I was like, I think you're trying to give me a message. I ended up selling the motorbike after that. But so I've ridden motorcycles, and I can honestly say that is probably one of those things too that I would gladly do again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And then.
You've mentioned your team quite a few times. Do you get a chance to select your team members? Are they assigned to you, or how does that work?
So the team that I work, no, so there's usually no selection. It's usually who's hired. But how you cultivate your team is up to you. I will get to choose going forward though for the second project that I'm working on with the shape-shifting material. I'll actually get to choose some of those members because as the chief engineer, I get to make suggestions on who I need in these positions and who would be a good fit. So this will be the first time, but taking this chief engineering position was one way for me to be able to show that I'm can function in the top level of where leaders are. And in doing that, I'll be able to do a little bit of hand picking this time. But the other 2 teams that I worked with, I had no pickings, no hand pickings, no anything. The only thing I did was make sure I was cultivating a good team for success.
And can you talk a little bit more about how you cultivate a team for success? I'm a servant leader, right? I serve the people I work with, okay? 4th of July, they ask people to work. Right? And so I'm going to these guys and I'm like, hey, are you gonna be able to work? They're grumpy though. They're like, I can't believe I work on 4th of July. So I'm like, yeah, I was like, I just need to know if I'm gonna have enough team to run one shift. I just want to run one shift. And they were like, you know what, Ms. Renee, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. As a civil servant, I'm not required to be there. Was I there? Yes. From the time they showed up to the time they left, I was there. And 4 of those hours for me weren't paid, okay? That's the first thing. I realized we don't have a cafeteria, we don't have food trucks, we don't have anything for the 4th of July because the base is shut down, right? I went to friends of mine who run a restaurant, and I said, I need to feed 12 guys. Nope, 16 guys. I need to feed 16 guys. I got one guy with allergies. This is his allergies, and this is what he can't eat, okay? They prepared the food, gave me a good discount. They prepared the food, and I ain't take them no shabby food either. I took them jerk chicken, peas and rice, cabbage, plantain, and some other stuff. We done picked up dessert, picked up good old sweet iced tea. I got them some popsicles and everything. It's the 4th of July. But I took that food over there, and when management showed up, I said, well, you can't eat the food. Like all of the employees need to eat first. Then management could eat. And so the guy said to me, why would you do that? Because they're my team. right? At any time, I could have left the facility to go get food. They could not. I also needed to reach a goal. I needed those wells completed that day for us to stay on schedule. As a leader, I understood their needs and provided for their needs out of my own pocket. Everybody was like, let me put up something. No, I don't want you to do that. So when I'm cultivating my team, I'm cultivating it with a lot of respect and a lot of value. People want to be valued, right? We're in a day and age where I want to know that you appreciate the work that I'm doing. I appreciate your work. Right? I want to know that, right? And I understood my team like that there were some who really needed that to be verbalized to them. And that's what I do. I go into my team and I try to recognize what people's needs are. I know what my need is. I said earlier to you guys, I don't do nothing without getting something out of it. And for me, coming in below schedule, right, or below a budget, those are huge for me. Those are how they're looking at me, right? And so that's how I cultivate teams.
Great transition, actually. You've talked at length about food and also about imposter syndrome. It's clear food's important to you in some regards. Is there a dish or a cuisine that reminds you of yourself or reminds you of home?
Fried chicken. Fried chicken and waffles. Jambalaya, red beans and rice and cornbread. Oh, good old mustard greens mixed with some collards in there. And you can fry a little pigtail and put that in there too. And then you can make some cornbread on the side. Hot water cornbread with some mustard greens, yeah.
If you have any recipes, I'd be interested.
Okay, I got you. Food is big for me. I tell people all the time, I got a fat girl that lives inside of me. And if she get crazy, she might live on the outside of me too, right? But determining where I'm going to live, that means a lot to me. Like they sent me to Cali and I was out there for 7 months, 8 months. I was like, this is the worst food I've ever had in my life. And I can't keep eating Mexican. Like the Mexican food was real good. Everything else was nasty, except the sushi in LA. Sushi was real good. And I was like, I can't afford the sushi I can eat like I want, right? I was reverting to Sam's sushi. I made to eat the Sam's, but I love food. And my son is a chef. And so when he was in culinary school, he taught me a lot about how to bring out the flavors of food, right? And so now I'm more or less cultivating dishes from scratch that have flavor in them. I think that there should be a party in your mouth when you're eating, right? And so that's my goal.
Well, let's thank the speaker one more time.